a scandal, and then to make it worse, you know, a few months later she got pregnant. She wasn't married, and she wasn't even divorced from Peter. That created a scandal that was of epic dimension.
I certainly thought that there would be some write-ups in the paper that I wanted a divorce, but I certainly didn't expect for months and years to be headlines and on the first page.
When she had a child with Roberto Rossellini and she wasn't married to him, why it was such a scandal and disaster. If it had been one of the actresses maybe who'd always played the bad girl, they would have said that's writing character. Because Ingrid Bergman was so convincing on screen as virtuous, submissive, and self-sacrificing, her off-screen behavior was a shock. Her former admirers felt duped and betrayed.
So many people tried to tell me that it was their enormous love for me, that their love turned to hatred because my image was the good, wonderful woman who had played, but they forgot that played, a saint and a nun. They forgot that I was a woman and maybe not at all what I did on the screen.
My mother stayed on in Italy with Roberto Rossellini after she made Stromboli. She was denounced in Congress by a United States senator who declared her persona non grata. My father and I lived in California with the enormous public outcry. After strange legal maneuverings, my mother received a Mexican divorce and a Mexican marriage, with stand-ins acting for herself and Roberto Rossellini. My father won custody of me in Los Angeles, with my cooperation. He was desperate. I felt I was all he had left. Meanwhile, in Italy, my mother's family was growing. In 1950, Robertino was born. 2 years later, my mother gave birth to twin girls, Isabella and Ingrid. You know, when you're a child, you think that it's like a story. You think everybody has control and they can make up their mind about their destiny and say, well, you did this wrong and you did this right and I... Yeah, but life isn't like that. As you get older, particularly after you have your own children, then you become able to say, oh, it's more complicated. Now I begin to understand. Now I understand why marriages fail. Now I understand why people don't get along with their children. Now I understand why there are absences or there are presents or there are difficulties. As a child, you can't see that.
It didn't hurt me, that the fact that my mother wasn't there every day. In fact, I kind of liked it because I was very noisy. And when mother and father were at home, they always told us to shut up because they were on the phone.